All right, we're talking about something called misophonia, which is an extreme sensitivity to just certain sounds and noises. And my sister 100% has this, and it totally makes sense now because if you scratch her pants, she absolutely freaks out and starts screaming and tells you to go in the other room, and she like literally has a panic attack. And I've never understood it. I thought she was totally insane and, to be honest, full of shit. But after reading this, I think I owe her an apology. What is misophonia? People, for the most part, can easily get irritated if somebody's like scratching their nails on a chalkboard or constantly tapping or chewing really loudly. Like, I get annoyed about that stuff too. The scratching a chalkboard drives me insane. It makes me want my skin crawl. But misophonia takes it to a whole new level because it actually causes like extreme anxiety, panic, rage when people hear certain sounds. And this was originally known as selective sound sensitivity syndrome, but now people are calling it misophonia. And interestingly, misophonia comes from the Greek word hatred of sound, right? Makes sense? That's what I thought. Okay, and what it does is that this, for instance, if you have it for scratching, like my sister, it prompts a fight or flight response in the person having it, and they like just want to scream, get out of there, like attack you, just go nuts. Like the last thing they want to do is hear that sound. They get extreme, like I said, rage, anxiety, overwhelm, and they cannot handle it. It's like if you were to put the sound of the chalkboard, nails on a chalkboard, like inside your head, I'm assuming it'd probably sound something like that. Unless there's something wrong with you and you like the sound of scratching on a chalkboard, which I think at that point you might be a sociopath. I don't know who that doesn't bother. Basically, researchers first proposed that this was a thing all the way back in 2001, and it says that the research for it still remains in the early stages, but they are learning more and more about it. The symptoms, basically it's just a strong negative reaction when hearing triggering sounds. And these are some of the things that they list as feelings that come along with it. I've said some of these, but feelings of annoyance, irritation, and disgust, anger, rage, or feelings of aggression, including a desire to lash out physically or verbally, nervousness or uneasiness in situations that could involve triggering sounds, a sense of anxiety or panic, including feelings of being trapped or losing control. This sounds awful. Also, it can get as extreme as feeling like tightness in your chest, like you're gonna have an actual panic attack, which that I've experienced and wouldn't recommend. -10 out of 10. And I mentioned this earlier, but the triggers can vary from person to person. So some people could have it just for scratching, some could have it for tapping, some could have it for sneezing. I don't know, it varies, but it really depends on the individual. Dr. Baron Lerner, an author and an NYU professor who has misophonia, described the trigger sounds feel in a word awful. He said, quote, like your blood is starting to boil. And he said he'll get a stomachache, racing thoughts, horrible anxiety anytime he hears any one of these triggers. It apparently is so extreme in some cases that it takes over all other cognitive functioning. So you can't even think rationally, kind of like when you drink and you lose your judgment goes first. I don't know if you knew that, but that's what happens. It affects the part of your brain first that has to do with judgment. And so you can't really be rational. And this kind of does the same thing. So you really can't rationalize your way out of this. The feeling is so extreme, you just want to freak out and panic. And researchers aren't sure yet what causes this. They said that it commonly does occur in people who experience either anxiety, OCD, Tourette's syndrome, and tinnitus, which is a ringing in your ear. And they see that it happens more often with people who do have some of those, but not always. Researchers have also suggested there could be a link between misophonia and ADHD. Scientists say that misophonia first appears in individuals who have it around the age of puberty. So it's saying as early as 9 to 12 years old, and then they'll start seeing it more and more. I gotta ask my sister if she had it. I think she has had that for a while now, probably back to when she was about that age. Yeah, checks out. Women tend to report more serious symptoms than men, which is really interesting. It also says that the initial trigger often comes from a parent or family member. I mean, don't they always trigger us? Like they do, but I guess it really happens in this case. But new triggers can develop over time. So some point, like people were describing it as that if they're really annoyed with the sounds of chewing, they can't even go to restaurants because they hear it so often, no matter who they're around, they'd just rather stay home and avoid the chewing sound. And it also says that it often runs in families. So I'd love to know, do you have misophonia? Have you ever experienced anything like it? Do you know anyone who has it? I find it fascinating. Let me know.